A very good evening to you and welcome to the most comprehensive bulletin in the country. This is most certainly KTN Prime.
Thank you so much for joining us this 11th day of March. And do remember, part 2 of jailed juveniles will be coming up later in this bulletin. But let's start off on a tragic note tonight. 15 people died after a Kisii-bound matatu veered off the road and plunged into a ravine in Chepsangor, Nandi County.
6 people, including 5 members of the same family, survived the grisly accident. Marcy Kandiye reports.
The steep hills at Chepsangor in Nandi was the site of the gruesome accident. The public vehicle left Eldoret town in the morning, destined for Kisii. The journey cut short at 9 a.m. after the vehicle developed what the survivors say was a mechanical problem.
Alafu ikafika mahali tukasikia kama ni harufu fulani, kama ni kitu imechomeka. Mimi nilishtukia kuangalia hivi, nimepata gari imetoka kwa barabara. Nilijipata tuko kwa hewa tu juu. Gari inaenda huko chini.
Tuliroll na gari mara 3 nikisika hiyo mtoto. Mwisho yake niliona kama nimeruswa nje, nikatoka na windscreen ya mbele.
Frederick Odhiambo, his wife and 3 children are lucky to be alive. They are recuperating at the Nandi Hills District Hospital. 15 people died on the spot, among them the driver and the conductor.
I think it is our responsibility, all of us, to ensure that the vehicles we drive are roadworthy. Number 1, we don't board vehicles that are overloaded.
The county government, however, blames laxity in the traffic police department.
We want to ask the government, especially through the police wing, to ensure that we have the right people on the road.
Most of the matatu, they have been paying 200 every morning to the traffic so that they can be allowed to pass without even checking out the air.
The accident occurs as the National Transport and Safety Authority and the Traffic Police Department took a tour of the notorious 11-kilometer stretch Salga-Kibunja Black Spot along the Nakuru-Eldoret Highway that has so far claimed 71 lives in a span of less than 12 months. And in a bid to curb road accidents, the officers say measures have been put in place, including use of speed guns and revoking of driving licenses of drivers found driving on free gear along the steep stretch.
It was a good start for us. It was a good Christmas for us. It was a good start for us. But now we are seeing a change. And in fact, a serious trend that we need to tame it immediately.
The commandants and ourselves will also be deploying a speed camera to this section of the road. And any vehicles driving beyond the accepted speeds, and we are going to indicate here the speeds that we are going to allow, not the normal 80 or 100. Any vehicle going beyond that, again, action will be taken.
However, the statistics on road deaths are staggering. 3,200 people died on our roads in 2013 alone. Sunday night, 5 other people were killed in a collision in Manzoni area along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. Saturday night, 11 people lost their lives at a road accident in Salga area. Today morning, many more lose their lives in the same manner. It is clear that much more needs to be done to ensure safety on our roads. Marcy Kandiye, KTN, Chepsangor Village, Nandi County.
The national debate on the public wage bill has elicited mixed reactions, but consensus remains on the need to reduce the enormous wage bill. A section of Kenyans have continued to oppose President Uhuru Kenyatta's approach of pay cuts for civil servants as lecturers and non-teaching staff in public universities issue a strike notice today. Ben Kitili takes a look at some solutions that have been floated in the ongoing national dialogue.
Despite President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks on his intentions to crack the whip and lead from the front in the country's bid to slash the public wage bill, not all civil servants are toeing the line as set by the government to reduce the public sector wage bill. Barely a day after the launch of the national debate on the public wage bill, public universities lecturers and non-teaching staff have issued a strike notice. Reason: they need a pay rise, never mind the raging debate of pay cuts.
Joint strike in furtherance of demanding for the full implementation of the 2010-2013 CBA.
Efforts by the government to talk the varsity workers into cooperating have borne little fruit.
But we reason together so that we can address this animal code, unemployment, and unsustainable wage bill.
This leads to a crucial question. Are there other ways through which the state can resolve the wage bill crisis? The most talked about solution to deflating the ballooning public wage bill is cutting down on massive wastage in government.
We are not talking about wastages. The budget 2012-2013, it accounts for 300 billion. Where is this wastages going to?
We must cut down on wastage and obviously cut down on corruption, even as we talk about an expanded public wage.
Another way of reducing the public wage bill, experts say, would be rationalizing the salaries of all workers in the civil service from top to bottom.
And whether people should be paid for attending day-to-day work meetings, or if allowances should be left for official trips and board sitting and board sittings.
The highest earner and the lowest should not exceed 20 times. But when you look at Kenya, it is 1 to 120 times. That tells you that the high earners are earning wages that probably they don't deserve.
Despite devising other, more difficult ways of chopping the 500 billion shilling wage bill, the executive agrees that one of the most effective methods of doing it would be simply to lower the painfully high cost of living in Kenya today.
Invest in our agriculture, invest in irrigation, reduce the price of hunger from 120 shillings to 60 shillings.
What about the 349 members of the National Assembly and 67 senators who make up one of the highest paid group of state officers?
Campaigns in Kenya are crazy. They are so costly. You have made politics very costly. Bring down the cost of campaigns, bring down the cost of politics, and pay the MPs less.
As many as for the contrary opinion say no.
Kenyans will be hoping to hear more affirmative response, especially from the policymakers, if the country is to bring the public wage bill nearer the acceptable 35% mark of Kenya's total revenue. Ben Kitili, KTN.
Now, the government is spending more than 100 million shillings discussing how to spend less money. With the wage bill debate snowballing, government institutions are under the spotlight for wasting billions of shillings on non-starter projects. KTN's Asha Mulu breaks down the numbers.
187 million shillings. That's how much the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is spending on gathering your views about the country's out-of-control wage bill. Monday's national conference at the KICC costed the taxpayer 36 million shillings.
I know it is concerned with salaries, but I don't know what exactly its mandate is all about.
Sisi tulishtuka sana kusikia kwamba jana walikuwa najaribu kuelimisha watu kwamba wasiwe wanapewa pesa mingi, lakini jana walikuwa wametumia shilingi milioni 200 kukaa chini, kukunywa soda, maji na vitu kama hivyo.
My good friend Serem's commission has no business going around the country wasting more money, asking people what is known.
Economists have been crunching the numbers, and they say President Uhuru Kenyatta's call for pay cuts is child play. If senior civil servants take the cue and forfeit 20% of their salaries, they will be saving the country 800 million shillings. Compared to the 538 billion shilling wage bill, 800 million is a mere drop in the ocean. And experts say the president should be facing his axe in a different direction.
That is not where the solution lies. That will be band-aid solution. You cannot use a band-aid to treat a cancerous wound.
Lumumba says he knows the government's excesses like the back of his hand. When he sat at the helm of the anti-corruption watchdog Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, he tried to check those excesses.
We worship money, we worship people with wealth, and we don't ask how they get it. We are indisciplined, and we spend money in places where we ought not to spend it. We know where the problem is, but we don't want to confront it.
Lumumba is not the only one concerned over wastage of public resources by civil servants. The Auditor General's report was clear that 348 million shillings was used last year on foreign trips. 500 billion shillings was pumped into seminars, inflated public contracts, and paying consultants. A further 100 million shillings was used to renovate the Deputy President's residence in Karen that was barely a year old. And 4 billion went into maintaining luxury vehicles for top civil servants. 4 billion that could be used to buy one MRI machine for each county.
This is to do with the inner bureaucracy, the original civil servant. And that has constrained what we call actual business growth, actual job creation.
But Uhuru Kenyatta preempted this dilemma back in 2009 when he was the finance minister. He swapped the fuel guzzlers used by ministers for the budget-friendly VW Passats. But since he assumed office on the House on the Hill, things have slowly gone back to normal. The fuel guzzlers are back on the road.
The Auditor General is a man with knowledge. The controller of budget, Ms. Oduor, is a woman of knowledge. There is no shortage of individuals in government who know what ought to be done. But the tragedy is that we don't listen to them.
And the pressure keeps piling on. All eyes are on the president, who in 2009 made the 10 billion budget computer error 2 times during his tenure in Treasury.
Yes, there may be a typing error. And that, to me, is not a major cause of alarm.
There's no hiding that this is a do-or-die moment for President Uhuru Kenyatta and his regime. The numbers are right on his table for him to act on them. Will he finally take a stand and trim down his bloated government, or will he choose to turn a blind eye despite the glaring realities staring right at him? Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, the 24.6 billion shilling tender for the supply of laptops to primary schools has been cancelled. The Public Procurement Administrative Review Board annulled the tender on grounds that the company awarded did not have the financial capacity to undertake the project and is not an original equipment manufacturer. And as Rita Tinino reports, the Indian firm Olive Telecommunications PVT Limited that had been awarded the tender has now been locked out of the fresh tender process.
With the laptop project already running behind schedule, it is back to the drawing board for the much-hyped government plan.
The award of tender to the interested party be and is hereby annulled.
The tender for the supply, delivery and installation of laptops for primary schools had been awarded to Indian firm Olive Telecommunications PVT Limited. European company HP and Haya Electrical Appliances Corporation Limited sought a review of the tender award last month. The Public Procurement and Administrative Review Board has ruled in their favor.
The bid therefore ought to have failed to pass the preliminary evaluation stage.
Companies in the tender were, among other things, required to have a minimum turnover of 8 billion Kenya shillings from average payments from contracts in progress or completed in the last 3 years, as well as access to liquid assets and a cash flow of 3 billion shillings. But with a revenue of 1.63 billion shillings, Olive Telecommunications PVT Limited did not meet the financial threshold.
Olive Telecommunications did not meet the mandatory requirement on the financials and should not have been allowed to proceed beyond the preliminary evaluation at this point.
The board also ruled that Olive Telecommunications PVT Limited was not in a joint venture as it had indicated and was in fact not an original equipment manufacturer. But that is not all. In the 24.6 billion shilling tender, the Indian firm quoted 1.4 billion shillings more than it had given as its best and final offer.
The board finds and notes that the inclusion of the figure of 1.4 billion shillings was unjustifiable and also contrary to the parameters set out and agreed upon by the parties at the BAFO negotiations.
With the cancellation of the tender, the board has ordered that the process be picked up from the opening of the best and final offers. Only HP and higher electrical appliances will be allowed to participate. The procuring entity has 45 days to complete the tendering process. The ruling further stalls the implementation of one of the Jubilee government's key election promises, and pupils in primary schools may have to wait a little longer before the laptops become a reality. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Now that story leads us to our big question tonight, and we are asking, do you support the government's free laptops for schools project? Do you support the government's free laptop for schools projects?
Of course, in light of the cancellation of that tender to Olive Telecommunications, we want to know your thoughts on that this evening. So do send us your comments on Twitter at KTN Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara, at Wilson_Mburu. You can also send us a text message with your thoughts. Start with a yes or no to the number 22155, followed by a brief comment, and we will sample your views at the end of this live newscast. Now, let's go to the clashes that we've been seeing, and those are the ethnic clashes at the boundary between Nyakach and Kericho over the weekend that have created a new set of internally displaced persons. Residents of villages along the Nyakach and Belgut constituency border have been rendered homeless after a wave of violence that has so far claimed 6 lives and affected 2,000 people. Fred Omula was there and brings us the latest update.
For residents of Cherwa village in Nyakach, the death of a suspected cattle rustler from Belgut, almost 10 kilometers away, couldn't have brought worse consequences here at the border. They are now forced to huddle together at a local church, relying on the Red Cross and well-wishers after losing everything.
We have 30 people whose houses were burnt and 26 whose properties were destroyed. They don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have shelter. Yes, all of them are putting up in this church, and you know they are mixed up. We have mothers, we have men, we have children, and the youths.
The attacks that have left these women and children destitute were carefully coordinated with friends in the Belgut side, even warning some of the residents here of the impending mayhem days to the chaos.
Walikuwa wanatengeneza hizo mkuki zao. Wakishatengeneza, baada hiyo siku 3 tena walikuwa wanakuja kutembea kwa hii milima. Walikuwa na patrol hivi kwa boundary hivi round. Walikuwa wanatembea hivyo wakitazama pande hii.
And when they arrived, the militia operated methodically under the command of a senior politician from Rift Valley, leaving inhabitants stunned and helpless.
Vile tulikuwa huko tulikuwa tunaona malori yakileta watu kutoka upande ule, ni kama makantas trip kama 3 hivi. Sasa walikuwa wanafanya kwa shift juu ni kama kulikuwa mahali wamesanyika wakikula. Waliendelea, ukiona kama watu 100 hapa, baadaye utaona 50, kisa wale 50 tena wanakuja. Ni kama walikuwa wengine wanaingia, wengine wakitoka.
Silpa's case is particularly heart-rending. The retired teacher who built this house with her savings upon leaving the profession watched it go up in flames as the police and provincial administration ignored advance warnings of the trouble and kept watch from a distance.
Why couldn't they come and save my house and my belongings? Why? Didn't I pay Ushuru? I worked for 27 years, and after working, I can't see my things. I can't see them. My things I can't see, and I worked for 27 years for the city council, and I was being taxed. Why? Why?
Like many here, she escaped with only the clothes on her back and has been reduced to a pauper, dependent on whatever handouts that may come her way in future. As the country proudly walks out of the Rome Statute, an influential section of the elite is resorting to the bad old ways that brought Kenya to its knees in 2007. As expected, the police will conduct their token investigations, the politicians will cut their deals, and the militias will continue to pillage innocent Kenyans. From Cherwa in Nyakach, Kisumu County, I am Fred Omulo.
Right now, in our continuing series, Jailed Juveniles, we follow the story of a boy who defiled a 4-year-old girl. Now, will society accept him back after rehabilitation? Wilson Mburu now takes us through the boy's life in juvenile detention.
Teenage years are probably the most confusing times in a person's life. Several changes, both emotional and physical, are taking place in the body. 18-year-old James Were, not his real name, is an inmate at the Shikusa Boston Institution, and he knows all too well how these changes can lead to disastrous results if not well managed.
Nikashindwa kuendesha, nilikuwa kwa stage ya dole, nikashindwa kujikinga.
When James committed this heinous crime, he was living with a relative who works as a night guard in Mumias. The relative was sleeping in the afternoon when James saw the girl while seated on this veranda. Then a conversation ensued.
Niambia, unataka nini? Nasema sina kitu. Nakuomba kutembea. Mwenyewe akaanza story yake. Mara nataka wewe. Nikajifanya kama sitaki. Tukaelewana, tukabaliana, tukaingiliana, atenda hiyo kitu, tukaachana.
He says the girl was 7 years old at the time. However, the girl's close relatives contradict the statement. Nyamwaita was 8 months pregnant at the time, and she recalls catching James in the act. She was at the neighbors that afternoon, then she decided to go back to her house.
Nikaona huyo kijana amekaa hapa hivi, alafu ameshika mtoto. Amemshika hivi, amemtoa nguo yake ndogo, alafu amemwekea mguu mmoja hapa. Nikajaribu kumchapa kabisa, akaponyoka, akakimbia kwenda huko juu. Alafu mtoto mama wengine walimchukua kamkalisha huko.
Stephen Panyako, the relative James was living with, was awoken from his afternoon nap to commotion outside. Naturally, he went to check what was going on.
Kutoka nje anapata watu wamejaa hapa. Nje hapa. Ati amefanya nini? Amerepi mtoto huyu. Sasa mimi nikaambia wapi mwenyewe. Atoroka amekimbia ameenda.
At that time, the priority was to take the little girl to hospital. The doctors ran several tests on her, then came back with news no parent wants to hear.
Madaktari wakaniambia ni kama alimuasa kitambo sababu fertility membrane alikuwa amebreak kabisa.
Later that evening, the boy was arrested and placed in custody. His mother, who lives in Teso near the Ugandan border, was informed of the arrest.
Lakini mama alitoka huko. Ati mtoto yangu amepigwa kwa makosa ili mimi sijui. Yakaenda wapi? Police station. Sasa mimi naye nikaenda huko nikaeleza maneno. Basi polisi akasema sasa hii ni raping.
The boy was held in the police cells for 3 months before his case started. As it turned out, it was a pretty straightforward case with very little defense. He was charged with defiling a minor and sentenced to 3 years in a Boston institution.
Alisemekana huyo kesi ya raping ni ngumu. Akabaki huko. Alafu siku ya kesi tulikuwa tunaenda kusikia tu. Basi siku ya kutoa hukumu alihukumiwa miaka 3.
Huyo kijana ni mtu mwenye anajua hapa. Sasa ni familia yake haikuwa inajiweza vile, utasimchukulia hatua kali.
In a bid to understand what may have contributed to this lack of control by this juvenile, we talked to Dr. Philomena Dambuki, a children's psychology lecturer at the Kenyatta University. She says Jim's behavior is a classic example of a child who lacks parental guidance.
Internal locus of control is where somebody is able to tell themselves something. Like, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I'm not going to do. They monitor, self-monitoring. They monitor themselves, they talk to themselves, and how can they talk to themselves and monitor themselves unless some other person who has the knowledge has given it to them?
Mama mwenyewe, sisi kumuona hata walinzalia kwa nyanya, nikaishi na nyanya, nasema kifika kiwango, sioni mama nyumbani,
At Shikusa, James finally got this much-needed guidance, courtesy of the institution's welfare office.
We have different rehabilitation programs that we undertake. While here, the welfare office deals majorly with guiding and counseling of these boys and giving them career guidance also to the specific maybe areas they will want to venture in.
He enrolled in a tailoring class, a skill he hopes will keep him grounded once he gets back into the community.
Shule imenisaidia kujiokoa maisha, kufanya kazi hapa, kujifunza kazi, kujisaidia maisha, kujikinga maisha.
But the biggest concern for James now is whether he will be accepted back in the society after rehabilitation, especially by his own relatives.
Bila ameoleza mimi si mbaya, atakuja na ataenda kwa mahali alisaliwa. Hata kuja hapa, karibu jina yangu na watu.
Akirudi mimi nitaenda hata nyumbani. Si ataweza mimi toka tu, lakini mimi nitaenda sababu mtoto bado anamkumbuka. Hata tu wakati tunaenda huko every month, mtoto akimwangalia hivi unaona anatoa smile. Means hajamsahau.
For a child to make it out of this institution and become a better person, support from family and friends is paramount. By the time we visited James in Shikusa, none of his relatives had ever gone to see him.
Mimi sijaenda. Yaani mimi naweza kosa nguvu ya kutafuta pesa. Sasa mimi nilisema si yako na baba yake mwenye anakaa na mama yake, hao naye waende waangalie.
Natamani kuona wazazi wangu sana.
The wish of a boy who says he realized what he did wrong, regrets his mistakes, and is now working hard to change his destiny. Wilson Mburu for KTN's Jailed Juvenile series. Tomorrow night on Jailed Juveniles, he's been alone most of his life. What did he do to survive?
Sasa bangi nilikuwa nanipatia yani kama ni chakula yani najitegemea. He wanted to stab me with a knife.
Breakfast, come back and change.
Good evening. Let's talk about business now. My name is Boni Tunya. Now, the Kenyan Parliament holds the key to unlocking Ethiopian markets for local business. This, the Kenyan Association of Manufacturers says, can only happen if a special bilateral status deal signed in 2012 is ratified by the 11th Parliament. Here's KTN's Michael Karanja with all the details.
The thirst for Kenyan companies to make inroads in Ethiopia is well demonstrated by the sheer size of its consumer market. However, this has for a number of years remained a pipe dream as Ethiopian authorities hold close to their chest market penetration rules. For Kenyan businesses, the special status agreement signed back in 2012 has been an impediment to accessing the Ethiopian market. Currently, the trade balances favors Kenya, more with exports to Ethiopia estimated at $53.2 million, while Ethiopia's exports to Kenya is placed at $4.1 million as at the end of 2013.
I see our partnership with Ethiopia not as one of competitors, but rather a complementary partnership that seeks the prosperity of the peoples of our two great nations.
It is no wonder then that President Uhuru Kenyatta is dancing to the Ethiopian tune, trying to get the agreement implemented and position Kenyan businesses in the lucrative market. Increased trade will benefit both countries as Kenya is looking to secure a larger market for its companies, while Ethiopia wants to have an alternative transport corridor for its goods.
What we really want to fast track now is our economic cooperation and partnership, where we intend to see a lot more people-to-people engagement. And as the Prime Minister has said, we are here also to put our two business communities together to see how we can encourage them to both increase the amount and volume of trade between our two countries.
Equity Bank and Brookside are few of the companies that have found getting into Ethiopia very hard. Currently, Ethiopia locks out foreign investors from its key economic sectors like telecommunication, agriculture, and banking. According to the president, listing regulations will also be amended to allow Ethiopian companies to trade and raise capital at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. During his 4-day state visit to Ethiopia, President Kenyatta is accompanied by close to 30 businessmen led by the Chamber of Commerce Chair, Kipruno Kitoni, as well as cabinet secretaries. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
Now, don't you just like those bilateral agreements? Trade, everyone is dancing, happy, including the president. But next is the story of automation gone bad. Taxpayers can now breathe a sigh of relief after the Kenya Revenue Authority postponed the full implementation of the online portal named iTax, following a week of hitches that saw many miss the deadline for the remittance of pay-as-you-earn returns. The system crashed early last week after a huge influx of people trying to register to beat the March 7th deadline set by the KRA. This left taxpayers who were not allowed to use the old manual filing system at risk of attracting an automatic 20% penalty for failure to remit their returns. But KRA has admitted to the system's glitch and has promised not to penalize any firm that failed to pay their returns in good time. KRA has also postponed the deadline for the full migration into digital platform to July the 1st in order to allow the taxman time to iron out whatever issues may arise. In the interim period, taxpayers will be allowed to use both the manual and the iTax system to ensure that tax remittances are submitted to government in good time and with ease. Let's talk about trucks now, and transporters continue to count losses at the port of Mombasa over delays in the fixing of the tracking devices sanctioned by the Kenya Revenue Authority. KTN Business caught up with one of such firms at the center of the chaos, and here's what they had to say.
According to the transporters, Borderless Tracking Company has been slow in action. This, they say, has seen them report losses amounting to over 50,000 shillings daily. But speaking to KTN Business, the firm denied the allegations.
We are a little overwhelmed by the response that we've received from the clients or the stakeholders in the market. And at KRA, when you look at it from the back, KRA has 5 approved vendors of ECTS. ECTS being Electronic Cargo Tracking System. Now, when we planned to roll out this as borderless tracking, we planned for a portion of the market.
Alongside Borderless, KRA also contracted Navisat Telematics, SGS, iSpy, and Automated Logistics to fit at least 600 trucks with tracking systems per day. Of this deal, Borderless Tracking took 50% of the share, leaving the rest of the cake to 4 other players. Current events have, however, seen a deficit of up to 200 vehicles.
The statistics that were there before showed 400 releases of transit cars per day. And therefore, our plan was based on meeting 50% of that. Currently doing between 160 and 220, which comes roughly about 200 on average per day, which means we're meeting our market, the planned market share. We're actually meeting our portion of the market share.
In an effort to serve the burgeoning demand and clear the backlog, the firm says it has now been authorized by KRA to increase its capacity and supply more systems.
We have had meetings at the port when we went to see what was going on. We have had meetings at Times Tower, and what we've done is we've assured the authority that even though we did not plan, and even though it's a high risk, if you're running a business and you're 5 of you competing in the market, you really don't plan to get 100% of the market. To plan and invest for 100% of the market, normally I would say it's foolhardy.
The regulation on tracking is aimed at keeping off goods aimed for neighboring markets finding their way into the Kenyan market, leading to uncompetitive practices with local players.
Right, to plan and invest for 100% of the market is foolhardy indeed. And on that note, we take a look at how your money is working for you with a look at the financial market report coming up next.
And shifting gears now to some athletics news, with a forecast for the next 1 week indicate it will be hot in Kampala. That means the teams taking part in the Africa Cross Country Championships will have to contend with high temperatures of up to 27 degrees Celsius. The Kenyan team has been camping in Ngong, an area that experiences diverse weather conditions. Reports from Kampala has it that the races will start at 2 p.m. at the time when the temperatures could reach 28 or 30. The forecasts show there will be rains in the morning on Sunday, March 16th. The Kenyan team, comprising of 24 athletes, is expected to leave for Kampala on Thursday. Kenya won 3 gold medals in the 2012 edition in South Africa. 6 teams will take part in this year's Bamburi Rugby Super Series, down from the traditional 8 teams. The tournament that kicks off from April 26th to 7th of June will be played across 5 towns and cities in Uganda and Kenya. The Kenyan teams are defending champions Ndovu, Papa, Kifaru, and Chui.
2014 Bamburi Super Series that will take the Kenyan and Uganda rugby center stage from 26th April is expected to be a hotbed for talent such as Kenya gears up to strengthen its 15 squad. This year's edition has attracted 6 franchises where Kenya will be represented by 4 teams. Rwenzori and Victoria will be flying the Ugandan flag. The tournament will set a platform for individual players to showcase their prowess.
Any player who is demanding participation at the senior teams, be it Kenya 7s, be it Kenya 15s, he will be noticed and will be picked.
5 venues in Kenya and Uganda have been marked to host the matches. Pool A will have Ndovu, Chui and Victoria, while Rwenzori, Papa and Kifaru will be in Pool B. Kampala will be the host of opening 2 fixtures between Victoria and Chui, then the clash between Rwenzori against Papa. Match day will be hosted in Kakamega on that of May, where Papa and Ndovu will lock horns with Kifaru and Victoria respectively. The next fixture will be Nakuru, where Kifaru will be up against Rwenzori, and then Ndovu will take on Chui. Machakos will get a big slice of the action hosting the semi-finals before the final match day 5 in Nairobi.
On top of rugby, when you have one venue as opposed to what we've had in the past where we had 3 or 4 venues, everybody then shows up, then you enjoy the matches, and you enjoy all the entertainment that we do.
If you want to see those fruits, if you want to see success, you must work for it. You must work very hard and you must work very smart for it.
Western Province against Kenya 15's team is expected to be the icing of the cake, as the South African side take the home team immediately after the final 2014 Bamburi Super Series clash. Title sponsors Bamburi Cement Limited is putting 20 million shilling in sponsorship. Nonsense Swahili, KTN Sports.
Well, now, if you're a bit squeamish about snakes, you want to watch out for this one. Listen, it's not easy to give up and throw in the towel, especially when the towel is inside a boa constrictor.
CNN's Ginny Moose has some unusual x-rays that may have you wondering, how did that get in there?
Wondering where that missing towel went? Maybe it's in the snake?
Pretty much this entire length of the snake had towel in it.
Veterinarian Dr. Julia Shakiri should know. She surgically removed the towel through a 2-inch incision, pulling it out inch by inch with the help of lubricant and water.
Oh, it smells.
The pet boa constrictor's name is Killer, but the towel could have killed him.
It causes an obstruction, which is life-threatening.
The doctor thinks a live rat the snake was being fed was clinging to a towel, so both ended up down the hatch. It's roomy down there. The other day we saw a snake swallow an entire crocodile. We've seen dogs like Hannah mistake a golf course for a main course.
6, 7, 8, 9.
She had to have 9 golf balls removed from her stomach.
Was that in your belly?
While Penny here preferred pennies. She swallowed 75 of them plus change. This poor guy was used as a drug mule, carrying cocaine-filled condoms. And as for a towel's practically an appetizer compared with what people insert and ingest. Instead of plugging into the wall, imagine plugging an electrical cord into your very own rear socket. But don't expect to pass the salt or the egg beater.
I accidentally fell on an object. That's probably the most common accidental story you'll hear.
3 doctors compiled x-rays of 100 objects in their book Stuck Up, from a cassette tape to a tuna can lid rolled like a cigar to a light bulb. The TV show Scrubs accurately portrayed one popular removal technique.
All we need to do is thread an angioplasty balloon past the bulb, inflate it, and then pull it.
From a Barbie doll to a handgun, nothing quick about this draw.
It was not loaded.
A concealed weapon even a snake wouldn't carry. Jeannie Mo, CNN.
Oh, this kid has a light bulb up his butt.
Bizarre. I accidentally fell on it. Yeah. No, I can't get over the egg beater inside someone's stomach. That's just bizarre.
I want that book.
Indeed,
that
it
book.
would make some good reading. Let's take a look at the big question results this evening. Of course, we're talking about the laptops tender project. We're asking whether you support the free laptop program in schools. The results are in.
The results are in, that's right. 78% of you do not agree, do not support the government's free laptops for schools project, while 22% of you support that initiative.
All right, let's take a look at one text here from Larry Mwawuri in Mombasa. You say, I cry every time I see pupils learning under trees, no desks, no textbooks, yet you go all around with the laptop project. I do not support it.
It is better to do away with laptops and teach children how to write and read. It seems this one is a bit confused from there on, but that is Henry Mosomi from Mombasa.
Right, let's take a look at a yes here. Lawrence in Kisumu. Yes, let's have the laptops. Then let's see how life will be for the laptop generation kids. It could turn out to be beneficial after all. Changes make life interesting.
I don't support that project. It's far too much for taxpayers to carry right now. Let them accept reality and do it when Kenyans are ready.
Those are your views on our big question tonight. We thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tweeting and texting and indeed being a part of this bulletin. We wish you a good night. My name is Yvonne Okwara. We'll see you tomorrow.
Part 3 of Jail Juveniles coming up tomorrow night. Don't you forget to watch that. Good night.